Welcome to Crime Family. In today's episode, I will be talking to you about the case of Nikki Whitehead. Nikki was a mother who had a rough upbringing and gets pregnant at just the age of 17 with twins. She tries everything to give her children a better life, but no matter how hard she tried, her daughters just didn't appreciate her, and one morning things turned tragic. So let's get started. So before I get into this case, have any of you guys heard anything or know anything about this case?
Yeah, I know kind of the basic facts of it. I know what happens and stuff, but I didn't really dive very deep into it. So I'll probably learn something I didn't know about it.
I actually don't think I know anything about this case, so I'm excited.
Okay, yeah, when I first read about this case, I heard about it back when it happened, but I didn't really know anything in the details. So when I was reading about it, I was just really interested, and it is quite a messed up, crazy case. I'm just gonna dive right into it. So like I said in the intro, Nikki Whitehead had a really rough upbringing. She lived with her grandmother, who had a hard time keeping her out of trouble. Nikki was doing quite a few drugs when she was in her teenage years and just one of those troubled teens. She ended up getting pregnant at just the age of 17 with twin daughters, Tasmiyah and Jasmiyah. And once the girls were born, they lived with Nikki's grandmother, which would have been their great-grandmother. Delilah is the grandmother's name. Nikki wanted her daughters to have a better life than what she had, so she made the tough decision to move to a new neighborhood just 20 miles away in Conyers, Georgia. Nikki wanted to give her children the advantages that Nikki never got to have, so she decided to enroll her children in dance and in music. And the girls were on a good path. They were straight A students, they were on the honor roll, part of the scouts. They had a lot of friends, they were popular, and they were just going on to the right path, and something that Nikki was proud of, to see her children doing so well. And her daughters had a dream of going to Harvard. When Nikki had moved and they started a new life, this was in 2000, and Nikki had met her boyfriend, 55-year-old Robert Head, who was a truck driver, and Nikki at this time was 25. They soon all moved in together. Her boyfriend had a really good job and was able to provide for Nikki and her daughters, which was something that Nikki was excited about. With the good job meant that he was gone a lot and left Nikki by herself to look after her daughters. And that was something that Nikki's friends and family said that she struggled with, because like I said, when the girls were first born, they ended up living with their grandmother, because Nikki was in and out of their lives for quite some time. So their friends were happy to see someone there to support Nikki and support the kids as well. But they did fear for Nikki when Robert was gone, just because she did struggle with looking after the kids by herself. All of them were getting along, they were moving in, and the life seemed to be pretty normal. But this all changed when the girls hit high school. That's when things started to spin out of control. The twins started to resent their mother for disciplining them. Like we see in most teenagers, they want their independence, and Nikki was just very strict and had very strict rules just because of how she knew what her teenage years were like. So it made sense for her to have these rules. Yeah, so it was getting to the point where they would be arguing constantly, and sometimes they would be violent fights. One night, Nikki ended up calling 911 because of Jazz had snuck out of the house to meet her boyfriend. And this worried Nikki quite a bit, so she made a frantic phone 911 call. During one of the 911 calls, the twins started to say that they wanted to go live back with their great-grandmother because rules weren't more relaxed and they just seemed to have a better life when they lived with the grandmother and things weren't so restricted. The officers end up coming to the house. After the officers had interviewed Nikki and Jazz and Taz, she had this weird feeling that things just didn't seem right. She said that the girls seemed sweet and innocent, but the look on Nikki's face, like she looked like she was just fearful of the girls and how deceitful the girls could be just from going to see them after that frantic 911 call. At the age of 13 or 14, it kind of was the different reports here when I was researching it. The girls did end up going to live with their great-grandmother just to get away from their mom for a bit in the toxic home life. But living with their great-grandmother only lasted about 2 years, and then the girls returned to living with their mom at the age of 16. Do you guys have any thoughts so far or any comments?
I guess I'm just kind of wondering, like, what would make them think that their life with their mother was toxic? Like, was she disciplining them, like, too much? Or was it just them thinking, like, oh, my mom's so unfair, like, as a teenager? Or was it really, like, extreme?
Well, there was one report that said that, like, she took their cell phones away from them because she didn't want them talking to, like, their boyfriends or, like, because after Jazz snuck out of the house, it was kind of like, okay, you can't be trusted, so I'm gonna take your cell phones away. Just being more disciplined, like come home at certain
I think they were
time.
just being like, I think the twins were just being dramatic. Like,
Yeah,
she
that's
seems like just a
definitely
reasonable mother.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
toxic. Like, that's something I could see myself doing. Like, I'm taking this from you.
and just because like how she was brought up, she just wanted a better, like I said, like a better life for them. So I think that's why like she was more disciplined towards them.
And like what they consider toxic would just be considered normal parenting for, but
they did have like fights and stuff like that, like arguments that kind of sometimes would turn violent. But I mean, teenagers argue with their parents quite often. It's just a stage they go through.
Yeah, and I feel like because they were twins, they were probably so close that they were just like feeding off each other too, like ganging up on their mom. It's easier when you have somebody else with you to like fight with you, I think. So I kind of feel bad for their mom.
Yeah, like they outnumber her and like they gang up on her. So like, it sucks.
And just 8 days later, after returning back home to live with their mom, this is when things took a dramatic turn for the worse. The girls claimed that they arrived home from school one afternoon to find blood everywhere and their mom submerged in the bathtub, dead. Jazz touched her mom to see if she was alive and then screamed and ran out of the house. She was running frantically down the street when, fortunately, an unmarked police officer happened to be driving by and Jazz flagged him down. After Jazz told the officer what had happened, the officer walked inside and there was just this bad odor. He could even smell it from outside the house. This was so overwhelming. The smell was so overwhelming. And what he saw, he just like nothing he could have imagined. And this is where the investigation starts off. So according to reports, the girls were described to be visibly distraught and they were taken into the Conyers Police Department. And the girls described to the officers of what they saw and what happened that morning. So this is the conversation that went on at the police station. Oh, this is Taz saying, "I heard Jazz scream and all I saw was blood," says Taz. Jazz muttered through tears, saying she's not coming back. Jazz continuously kept asking for her mom. "I want my mommy," and her sister would comfort her. And Jazz said that you have to be strong because I'm going to find who did this. They continued to tell the police the shocking and scary scene that they had just witnessed. As the girls kept talking, the more questions the police had. One of the detectives asked the girls, "What time did you leave for school?" Taz says, "We missed the bus that morning, so we had to walk." And the detective says, "You walked all the way to Rockdale?" And Taz said, "It's not that far." The police had found some surveillance footage that showed that the girls only walked to the gas station and got into a stranger's car. So at this point, the police are starting to get suspicious. And when they looked at the camera at the school, it showed that the girls were 2 hours late for school. Jazz did admit that she touched her mother when she saw her in the bathroom and saw her mother in the tub covered in blood. So she touched her. So she was stabbed about 80 times. She had cuts and bruises all over her. Parts of her hair was like, the big chunk of hair was like out of her skull. And just the brutal beating she took, like just from the stabs and the bite marks alone, like from the stab wounds, like her spinal cord was nearly severed. So this was like not just like, this was like a brutal attack. So once the police kept asking questions, and the more they asked, the more suspicious they were of the two girls. So after they talked to the girls, like obviously they did investigations, and they were seen as victims at the time. So they were starting to get suspicious, but nobody really had like, oh yes, the girls did it. The girls did end up saying that it was possibly Robert who could have done it, or her other boyfriend at the time. So she was dating Robert, but she was also dating this other man, the two boyfriends at the same time. So they did talk to both of them.
Wait, who had two boyfriends at the same time?
Nikki had two boyfriends at the time of her murder. So she had Robert, who they were living with, and then she also had this other boyfriend as well that Robert didn't know anything about. Robert did have an alibi. He was away on a business trip at the time of the murder, and when they talked to this other boyfriend, he was in Canada at the time of the murder. So those two were ruled out immediately. So they didn't have any other suspects at the time. And of course, at this time, like I said, like the girls were victims at this time, but they were kind of suspicious just by the way they were acting. And the girls did have a history of domestic trouble with their mother for years, which was evidence in this handwritten letter that was recovered by the police. The letter was written by the girls, and it basically was just like notes describing how much they hated their mother and how much they despised their mother, and just nasty things about their mother, and like they wished their mother was dead, and not your typical journal entries that you like would see in teenagers like writing down their feelings. Like these were like very deep, dark messages.
So it seems like they just seem like they didn't really have any reason at all to hate their mother that much. Like, what did she do that was so bad? I mean, maybe we don't know everything that had happened. Maybe there was stuff going on that we don't know about, but like from all the facts that we do know, it seems like, what we said before, she was being a very reasonable mother, disciplining her children when they would do something bad or when they needed to be disciplined. So I think for them, it was more like they just hated her, but it wasn't necessarily her. It was like, it probably would have been anyone who disciplined them, or anyone who kind of didn't let them just do whatever they wanted when they wanted.
I just feel like there was just so much like anger built up. Like they were like sweet, innocent kids. Like they were like doing well. And like, I think once they hit their high school years, like the crowds they were hanging out with, and like maybe their mother like was in and out of their like lives for a brief, like considering she had two boyfriends, so maybe like she wasn't home a lot, and maybe there was just that like repressed anger that just build and build and build, and then they just couldn't take it anymore. I don't know, like
maybe like one or more of those boyfriends of their mother was like not good to them, and their mother didn't stand up to them or something. I don't know. That's just me like thinking about situations of why they would hate their mother so much, because from what you're saying, there really wasn't a reason. Like maybe when they were younger, their mother wasn't there, but to me, it sounds like she really did try. So I don't understand what they're like, this animosity they have towards her.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what I was saying. It's like we might not know everything that did go on, so maybe there is something there that we don't know that would maybe like justify them having an anger towards her. But just if like we look at just the facts that we know, it seems like there was no reason for them to hate her that much.
And like I said,
other than just being like angry teenagers who were just miserable and angry.
Yeah, and like feeding off each other. Like I said before, it's like one thing when you have like one angry teen that gets over it, but when you have like another one that they're like egging each other on, it like makes it just manifest.
And I feel like their mother tried everything to like give them this life that she always wanted for her children. And like I said, when they were 13, they end up moving back with their great grandmother to try to get away from that. And so it was like they were trying to escape something. Like I said, like this case doesn't really go into a whole lot of like their back history of like what actually went on. It just kind of like skims the surface of like maybe it all has to do with like when the kids were younger and how much in and out of their lives Nikki was. And but like it never really does go into like a whole like deep history of like their actual like upbringing and stuff. So it's hard to like say. So at this time, once the police were, after they read these letters and saw what was written on these letters, they also noticed when the girls had come into the police station that the girls were wearing gloves. The police had asked the girls to remove the gloves to show their hands. So the police had asked Jazz what happened to her, because her hands like were all cut up and bruised, and she had like scratch marks all over her hands. And so obviously the gloves, they were trying to hide something. Jazz ended up saying that she got in a fight with her sister. This is when the police decided to separate the girls into different rooms, because up to this time they were together. The girls kept asking why they were being separated, and it wasn't fair that they were being separated, and they didn't want to be separated from each other. They wanted to stay together, and they were just having a really hard time with that. While being separated, the girls tried to stick to the same story, but being separated was starting to wear on them. And the more the questions the police asked, the more lies the girls told. First, when they were asked about the bite marks, the girls said they got in a fight with each other. But that story changed to bite marks were self-inflicted. According to Jazz, said that she bites herself when she gets nervous. It's like a nervous reaction. Jazz was trying to play her lie to the camera, and was starting to like bite herself while on camera. And Taz was trying another act for the camera. She was crying and she was saying like, I can't eat, like my mom's dead, you can't prove anything from scratches. And like she was just trying to be the victim. She was just like being very like hysterical and very like distraught. So you can clearly see that the girls are spinning like these webs of lies and this is starting to wear on them. And the police know that if they keep asking and pressuring the girls, like they'll eventually crack. They don't have solid evidence at this point. So the police unfortunately had to like release the girls. So because like I said, they didn't have any solid evidence, so they were free to go. So once they had left the police station, they were released back into their great-grandmother's house, and they went back to normal. Like they went back to school, they back to like their social gatherings, they went to prom, they had a normal life, and everything seemed to be going okay while the investigation was still going on. Like the police were building a case against them. They were trying to figure out like what had happened, trying to get down to the bottom of it. But like I said, the girls, they were let free basically to do what they want. Do you guys have any comments on that? Like it was just
but I mean, like, yeah, but they can't keep them there though. Without like to keep them there, they'd have to charge them, and they don't have any enough to charge them. Like those are kind of circumstantial evidence at this point. Like having scratches on your arms doesn't, make you guilty of murder, even if obviously it doesn't look good. But so like it's frustrating that of course they were let go to like just go on and live their normal life. But like it would be shocking to me if they did charge them with like barely any evidence. Like so it makes sense like from a law enforcement perspective like why they would be let go. But even though it is annoying.
Yeah, even like right at the beginning when you were saying how the cops would come because of like domestic violence issues, and how you said like they could just turn it on right away, this innocent like victim, and how their mother was just like, oh my god, how quickly they can just like act that they're scared. Or so it doesn't surprise me that they were able to like act their way out of this situation and act like victims. So it's kind of crazy.
But like maybe they probably would have like assessed them and probably realized they weren't a flight risk. Like they're 16 years old, they probably are just going to go back to school, do their thing. Like it's not like they're probably people are just going to flee the country and leave. Their chance of fleeing was probably pretty low. So maybe that's why also what contributed to it as well. Maybe if they had like a reason to believe that they were a flight risk or something, then maybe they would have been able to like I don't really know like how it works, but like do something to like keep them in custody so that they could prevent that. But I don't know. I don't really think a 16-year-old are going to like go and leave the country or anything. But
Well, yeah, and if they had no evidence, they can't just hold them there because they have to prove something. And then if they try to charge them but they don't have evidence, then it can just be like dismissed or acquitted, and then they can't charge them later. So it's like they have to make sure they have enough to hold them before they go ahead with it. So I see why they let them go, just so
like
that they didn't screw it up.
Yeah, like they'd much rather have them like let them go and have them be free for a few months while they craft a case to actually get them convicted, versus like trying to rush it and then having it, you know, blow up because
like found not guilty or acquitted or something because they didn't have enough evidence. You can't just hold someone because you think maybe you'll have evidence down the road. You have to like charge them with something and have evidence to charge them. So so
it's probably the smarter thing in the long run to let them go and just have, like, you know, they can go to prom for whatever and be free for a couple months to get like, you know, for the greater good.
And also them like thinking that they got away with it and free. Maybe they'll be like a little bit more relaxed and like let something slip, or, you know, just because they think that they're in the clear.
Yeah, like let their guard down and like tell somebody the wrong one thing that like kind of sparks suspicion.
Yeah, or like we've seen before, like in other cases, not that we've done, but like other cases where people kind of get cocky and they think they got away with it and they start bragging. I don't know.
When if they're planning it or they know it's going to happen, like they know how to like behave in the immediate aftermath. Like they know that people are going to be looking at them, they know they're going to be questioned, and like they're all prepared for that and they're able to like get through that. But like then as the months go on, they're going to get like lazy, they're going to like start slipping up and stuff. So
this freedom only lasted just a few months, and it was about 4 months after they were questioned. On May 21st 2010, the girls were arrested and charged with murder. Jazz was arrested at her house and Taz was arrested at the school, and they decided to arrest them on the last day of school because they were afraid that once summer was coming that they would flee to avoid being arrested. So this is why they did it like the last day of school. The girls were arrested and taken into the police custody. Once at the police station, they had both originally pleaded not guilty, but then with their lawyers present, they each had a plea agreement, so they ended up pleading guilty. But before we get into that whole thing, like after that they were arrested and all that, they did confess to the crime. It was kind of more they wanted to tell the story of how they killed their mother, like with pride type thing, because just the way they were describing it was just like two very like evil people.
Did they ever like turn on each other? Like Jazz said, "Oh, it was all Taz's fault," or the other way around? Like, or did they kind of just stick to it like it was both of us?
No, they kind of stick to that it was both of them. Nobody really turned on each other. Like I was shocked because mostly sometimes you see that, and people like couples who like murder somebody, or like boyfriends and girlfriends who once they get so like questioned by the police a lot and like separated and like they turn on each other. But these guys were pretty like they were together from beginning to end.
Yeah, that's really interesting because even sometimes they get like offered a deal. It's like if you will say this that your sister planned it and did it all, then you'll get a lesser sentence. So that's interesting that never happened.
And I would be interested to know like if they were, I don't know if maybe you'll get to that, if they were like, did they have separate lawyers where they tried together? Because I'm surprised like if they had separate lawyers, like their lawyer wouldn't like try to pin it on the other one and be like, oh well, this one like convinced her or was like the instigator or whatever, and this, you know.
They did have separate lawyers. I am going to get into like what they were charged with because they weren't charged with first degree murder. So I will get into that in just a couple seconds here. So like I said, after they were like arrested, they both did confess to the murders. This is what the girls described of what happened that day. According to the girls, it all started in the kitchen with a fight after the girls had woken up late for school. The girls said that their mother was going on and on about like, you're not going to be late for school, like they're going to follow the rules. And the girls said that their mother threatened them like with like she was cooking breakfast, threatened them with the pot from the stove. And they said that they wrestled the pot away from their mother, and then Nikki picked up a knife, but she didn't have it in her hand. She just put it back down like straight away. Then the altercation continued into the living room and it got more violent. That's when Jazz picked up a red vase and smashed it over her mom's head. The mom picked up the knife, and that's when Taz hit her mom with the pot, and then the mother bit her on the chest. Because Taz was not that tall, when her mother bit her, like she latched on, and Taz was like punching her mom and like trying to get her off because it hurt. And then that's when Jazz picked up the knife and stabbed her mom. But the mother kept fighting the girls, and that's when one of them picked up a ribbon medallion, which is like a prize that they had won for scouts back when they were kids. So it had it was like a medal, but it had like a ribbon on it. You know how we got like soccer medals, like that type of ribbon on it?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't get any soccer medals. No, I'm just
I had
kidding.
quite a few, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyways,
I mean, I think I got a couple, but whatever.
Participation.
Shut up.
So the girls and tried to choke their mother, and I guess the mother had like enough strength to like, with the swing from a back blow, and caught Jazz off guard and like knocked her in the head. And that's when the girls ended up dragging her into the bathtub and then stabbing her a few more times, and they just like left her there to die.
A few more times, like 75 more times, 78 more times. Jesus Christ!
And as she was dying, the girls recall her mother's like her saying like she hated us, that we're gonna go to jail, and all that. They remember her saying that their mom was like, there's like that she was sorry, not sorry for what they did, but sorry because of how they did it, along with how they didn't get along and they were always fighting. So they weren't sorry that their mother was dead. They were sorry that they didn't get along with their mother, is kind of how they put it. So very cold and very like just evil. Like, oh, we don't care if our mother's dead, but we're sorry because we didn't get along with her.
Wait, so you said that they apologized for how they did it, but not doing it.
Yeah, they apologized for like why they did it because of the relationship they had with their mother, but they weren't sorry for that their mother was dead. After that, the girls claimed their mother went under the water a couple more times, and then when she didn't come back up, that's when the girls realized that their mother was dead and that their domestic troubles with their mother was finally over. Then Jazz says they got her purse, her cell phone, the knife, and the pot and put them in a plastic bag. And then they cleaned themselves up and they headed to school, thinking by the time they got home that the police would have noticed, their mother would notice something. That was the story that they told the police after they confessed, like the actual story of what happened to the mother. It wasn't until January 2014 that Tasmiyah Whitehead pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter, making false statements and possession of a knife during a crime. She was sentenced to 30 years in jail and is serving her time at Arundel State Prison. And on just a month later, on February 2014, Jasmiyah Whitehead also pleaded guilty to the same crimes and was also sentenced to 30 years in prison. And she is serving her time at the Pulaski State Prison. Taz went on to get her GED while in prison, and it showed in the documentary she was a valedictorian of her prison class of high school students, I guess you would say. And her great grandmother was right beside her. Like she said, she was proud of how well Jazz has become in prison. Like she changed, a different person. As of today, there have not been any updates on the girls if they were up for parole or not. They will be 50 years old when they are released after their sentence. And that is the story of Nikki Whitehead and her daughters.
I feel like voluntary manslaughter is just murder.
Murder, yeah. My question, because I never heard of it.
Wait, I'm going to look it up.
Either way, 30 years is not long enough, even if they planned to murder their mother.
Yeah, but probably because they were minors at the time, it might have had an impact.
Maybe, yeah.
I guess voluntary manslaughter is when the act of murder is committed either in the heat or passion in the defense of yourself or others.
It was like during an attack, you decide you're going to kill them.
Yeah.
Versus like involuntary, which would be like they happened to die after you did something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
You didn't mean to do it.
But I guess but voluntary manslaughter is still like, it's not planned in advance. It's like during something happening, you decide.
But yeah, but how's that not second degree murder?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird, like the
It's like so
those-
many like weird, different, like a
Yeah.
small like distinction or small like detail changes, and
know.
like your sentence can change.
Yeah, like that's when I was talking about it, like I was like shocked that like voluntary manslaughter, like I'm surprised they didn't get more to their sentence because they, like AJ said, they're minors when it happened, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy case. There's just kind of like two evil like 16-year-olds. I mean, they just seemed like they had a lot of anger issues and just hated their mother for whatever reason. But
it's crazy that they thought about Harvard, like they were actually caring about school, and like they did something that would obviously prevent.
And I always like you always see in these cases too. It's like they decided to get rid of them once and for all to live a better life. Like you think you are, like you know you're gonna get caught, right? And you are gonna go to prison. Like how is that a better life? Might as well just like wait it out for 2 years. Move out when you're 18.
Out. Like like just get out.
Yeah, like it's so weird to think like that's her first resort is to like just like murder her and like to live a better life. Like, is it just like some arrogance? Like, oh, we'll never get caught, because like you have to know that there's a substantial risk that you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life.
This wasn't just like you're playing, I shot you, you're dead murder. This was like a brutal attack, like a vicious like overkill, basically.
And I feel like you don't stab someone that many times in the heat of the moment. I don't know. Like, it seems like you were like doing it like, you know, just vindictively at that point. Like, it's not like, I don't know. Because it's not like it's like you're defending yourself and like, you know, 1 or 2 stabs. That's it.
Yeah, like, they always say like when someone stabbed that many times, they know it was personal because like somebody was super mad or they had some sort of, you know, really emotion against this person. That's why a stranger doesn't come up and stab you 80 times. It's somebody that really hates you or like loved you or had some strong emotion towards you. It's not just some random. So yeah, it definitely.
It's like, I know I mentioned this before in another case, but it reminds me again of like the Jodi Arias case where like she literally stabbed him like multiple times, shot him in the head, almost decapitated him, and then tried to say after that it was like we got into a fight and I was defending myself. It's like, well, the final gunshot to the head after you stabbed him 30 times, like, it was a little unnecessary. So that's what it reminds me of.
And it's unfortunate for Nikki because she did not have a fighting chance because she had these two people attacking her at the same time. So, like, I could see if it was like one of the twins was attacking her and like she might have tried to get away, but it was like 2 of them at the same time and like she just didn't have a fighting chance. Like, it's just like a horrible situation.
Yeah, the whole case just seems so like crazy that they turned on her as much as they did. Like I can see them maybe resenting their mother and wanting out, but like to do what they did is, you know, obviously it's super extreme and sad.
And they did get out when they were 13 because they went to live with their grandmother. And I feel, but only for 2 years. I feel like what made them come back? Do you know what I mean? To back with their mom, if they hated her so much.
And I find it kind of weird too. Like, I don't know, when you were saying like the grandmother was saying like, oh, I'm so proud of them. They're literally in prison for 30 years for killing her, what would be her granddaughter. Like, that's kind of like a weird reaction to have, I think, or like a weird thing to say. I don't know. Did you not find that too? I just found that kind of weird.
Yeah, that's what was in the documentary. That's what I would, when it showed Taz graduating and was a valedictorian, and at the end her grandmother was like, I'm so proud of like how far she's come, and like I know she'll do great things when she gets out. And just thinking to myself, like, how could you be proud of her?
I don't know. You see, like, people always want to see the best in everybody, right? And like the mothers and their daughters or their kids are always just like, yeah, like no matter what they do, I'm gonna love them. Like, you know, they could be like the worst person in the world and their mother still loves them because that's just what a mother does. So it's kind of crazy that, yeah, I guess, but I
just find it weird. Like, it's like that the person that they killed was her granddaughter too, right? Like, it's not like they killed someone who wasn't.
It definitely seems like everybody has like these negative feelings against this woman. Like, even her grandmother was like, you know, her great granddaughters, I don't know, she loves them more. I don't know, it's weird.
But I mean, maybe, like, I don't know, I've never been in that situation, so maybe she's like making the best of it, or, you know, it's not, hating them isn't going to change the situation, so maybe
she's just... and like those are, and like they're still alive, so she still wants some sort of relationship with her family, so she has to kind of be on their side, I guess, rather than just hold this hate with her for the rest of her life. She just has to find a way to accept it, I guess.
Because if she hates them, then maybe when they get out of jail, they'll turn on her too. I'm kidding.
But looking out for herself, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, geez, I better prepare. Just be nice to them.
Yeah, I gotta be on their good side.
Maybe they'll get out. Maybe they'll end up going to Harvard, and maybe they'll just have like a decent life. But
No, I feel like Harvard will look at your criminal history, and there's no way they're
Well, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, there's definitely.
I feel like Harvard's probably not the most probably not the most like progressive school. Like they're probably like very like straight edge. Like if you have any sort of history of anything, they're gonna be like, no, we'll pass.
Yeah, that's not happening for them for sure. But they could still go to university, go to some college, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like if they get out when they're 50, like 50's still quite young, so like they would still have like, you know, a long time. And if they have changed, I don't know. It's hard to judge someone for like something that they do when they're 16, even though it's super heinous and horrible. And like obviously you have to have some sort of like something inside you that will make you do that, but you can to think that you can be a different person when you're like 40 versus when you were 16 is...
I also found it interesting that they didn't go to the same prison, like they were separated, which I found was really odd.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that. Like, I wonder if that was like intentional. Like, they need to keep them separate. But they probably did do it intentionally to keep them away from each other, so they could like just grow as individuals.
Yeah, like maybe they feed off each other. Like maybe like, you know, being together makes them.
There's like a bad influence on each other.
Yeah, and like maybe they wouldn't do. Like maybe one of them on their own, if they had been like an only child, wouldn't have done. It
wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. But when you have two people who are like in the same situation, you kind of
feel like,
you know,
like I feel like Taz was the. I want to say the more responsible one. I feel like she was the like if it was just her and her mom, I don't think she would have done it. I think Jazz had the most animosity against her mother. Like I feel like, yes, they committed the crime together, but I feel like you said, one probably wouldn't have done it if the other one wasn't there, type thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, crazy.
So thank you for joining us. If you like what you heard, please follow us on Twitter at CrimeFamilyPod1 or on Instagram at CrimeFamilyPodcast. You can like us on Facebook at Crime Family Podcast Facebook page, or if you have any comments or want to suggest a case or just want to get some feedback, you can email us at crimefamilypodcast@gmail.com. Hope you enjoyed tonight's episode and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.